On this episode of the Upstate Impact Podcast, we sit down with Amy Nichols, Executive Director of Encore Youth Productions. Amy shares a story behind EYP, what it takes to bring each production to life, and the incredible demand they're seeing and the exciting new project they're taking on. She also discusses the importance of community partnerships and the role they play in helping EYP continue to grow. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Obviously you said you're from Liverpool. Why don't you just give me a little background? Obviously I looked some stuff up online, but excited to kind of hear, your upbringing, how you got to where you are with Encore Youth Productions, and just give us the quick background stuff.
Yep. I grew up in competitive dance theater. That was kind of my thing. Was never the sports kid. So it was always what I did and what I loved. I went to school to be a teacher, and I taught second grade for a few years and then kindergarten. After that, I had taken some time to try out something very different than education. I worked in staffing and recruiting for a year and a half before ultimately going full-time with Encore Youth Productions, or EYP is what we call it. So a little bit about kind of how it came to be. It wasn't the typical, we have this idea, let's make it happen. It wasn't a business plan. It wasn't this dream. It kind of just happened. I was probably 17 or 18 at the time. The Landmark Theater actually wanted to start a children's theater organization. So they contracted us out to do one show a year. We had about 30, 40 kids. It was just fun. It was low stress. There wasn't a lot involved with it. We just put on a show every summer, and that was kind of it. And as someone who was in school to become a teacher, it was a nice balance. I was going to be a teacher during the school year and put on some shows in the summer and have a little side hustle.
How'd they find you?
So they actually found there was four of us initially when we started. There was a gentleman, James Albanese, may he rest in peace. He was on the board at the Landmark Theater, and his niece is a music teacher. And he basically said to her, I need you to build a team. I need you to bring some people together and run this show. I was asked to teach dance for the show. Again, I was very minimally involved. I showed up, I taught the dances, and I went home. That was kind of it. In 2017, the Landmark went through a lot of restructuring and really just didn't have the capacity for the program anymore. And we were faced with this battle, this decision of, we have 60 kids at this point that do our show. Do we just throw that away? What do we do? We felt like there was people were counting on us. There was a need for this. But we were three teachers. We didn't know anything about anything business related or how to make that happen. So we started looking around at different theaters, trying to find a new home. We ultimately landed at the Palace Theater. And as most people would know, they were kind of you need to be a business. You can't just do a show here. So the three of us and James Albanese kind of leading the team, we became an LLC, started doing 2 summer shows, eventually sprinkled in a fall show. Kind of just started getting a little bit bigger. Our shows were up to 60, 70 kids per show. We were doing 3, 4, 5 shows a year. Things were really good, but again, it was a fun outlet for us as teachers. We were teaching throughout the year, and our summers were full of theater, and it was busy, but it was everything we could want. It was a fun job on the side. And then COVID happened, of course, and everyone kind of had to restructure the way things were going. During COVID, we were not allowed to exist in any capacity. Sports were able to do things outside, social distance, all of that. Theater was absolutely not. You can't cram people into a small space and sing in their faces. So we kind of took that gift of time to really look at what we wanted to be in the future. Is this a business that's going to exist for a couple teachers to make some extra money and give kids somewhere to perform and do shows? Or could this be more? We started to really look at things less in a business perspective and more in a mission-driven way. And that's ultimately what led us to become a nonprofit. We started to realize that this wasn't about us. We knew that, but it really put into perspective that these kids need this. And there was so many opportunities for kids in other areas, but not in theater. So we took that time, we became a nonprofit. We, did all of the planning of our mission statement and who we are and what we want to be. And then luckily COVID ended and we kind of started to blow up. So that's ultimately in 2024 what led me to go full time with the company. We just needed someone to be able to take things and bring it to that next level. And now we're basically playing the game of how many kids can we help, how many people can come in our door, how many shows can we do, just trying to grow and just really, again, fill that need for what kids are doing. So for me, it's amazing. I do what I've always wanted to do. I never thought that theater would be my job. And I obviously am not performing by any means, but it's really cool. I get to put on these shows and also have learned so much in the business aspect of things, and really diving into that and kind of reaching a new potential for myself. So I'm really lucky that I get to do this every day. It's really cool.
Did you have that experience when you were younger?
Yes, I did. I was competitive dancing, which is a very big time commitment. It's kind
From
of
what
your,
I've hear.
it's kind of your everything. Yeah. So I did a lot. I was focused a lot more in the dance world. I did some shows and some singing and things like that, but it was never my focus. When I got to high school, I was kind of faced with that. You got to pick, both are involved. Are you going to do theater or are you going to dance? And I did make that shift to theater, and really started to maximize my experience in singing and performing beyond just dance. And then even when I graduated high school, I did, some community theater, some things like that. And so it's always been very present for me. It's always been, a fun outlet for me. But again, I never imagined it's something that I would still be working so heavily with today.
Yeah. Well, it's a cool story of how you guys just were like, hey, we'll put on this summer play.
Yeah.
And clearly there was a demand.
Yeah.
And plus you guys enjoyed it, right? Even if there is a demand and if you don't have any interest in it, right? It's hard to keep that going.
Yeah.
But it was a nice, different, it was a little side gig for you in the summer.
Yep.
It's also funny. I think of a lot of teachers who are like, I want to do something else but work with kids in the summer. But it clearly, it was just enough of a change for you to be like, it was still, a fun creative outlet, it sounds like. And then as it grew, you kept having demand.
Yes.
And then you hit COVID. Almost seems like a little welcome pause to feel like, take a break and say, all right, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
It just kept growing and, you're probably busy. You're still teaching, you're doing that. It's like, you didn't even think about the next step. It's just, you knew there was a demand and you knew you wanted, you were doing more shows. Talk about that. Was that like a welcome break? As much as COVID was detrimental to a lot of businesses and organizations like that, that seemed like it kind of made things a little more clear for you guys.
At first, of course, no one was, welcoming COVID at the time. But I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people look back and they can say, for many reasons, that time in a way was a blessing, whether it's people moved home from the city or had more time with their families. You obviously can always look back and reflect. When it happened, it was hard for us. James, who was really doing most of our business side of things, had just retired from helping EYP with things, was going to focus on family, was getting older and was there to support us, but wasn't really taking on all of the business things anymore. And then COVID hit. So we were like, we don't even have direction on like how to handle this or like what to do. And so it really kind of made us step up as we have to figure out how to do this. We have to do more than teach the kids. We have to be able to figure out how this is going to work because at the end of the day, we're the ones that know what the kids need, what the shows need. It makes sense that we should be doing all of it. We know this organization the best. At first, to be honest, we were trying to figure out if we were going to exist in general. When COVID hit, we had all of our summer programs planned, and that means most families had already paid for them. So COVID hit and it was less of a, what do we do? And it was more of a, how quickly can I refund hundreds of people their money? And then what do we do from there? So it was such a shock financially of, can we even afford to exist after all of these refunds? once we realized that we could at least survive, we didn't know what the future was going to be. We didn't know where we could take it from here, but we knew that we at least had a couple months of paying the bills and coming up with a plan. Once we hit that realization, it definitely was a blessing. I mean, I don't know that we would have become a nonprofit. Definitely not as soon. I don't even know if we would have realized it was the right thing to do at all. Again, it was like when we were looking at what we want this to be and what it can be, everything was so focused on the dollars and the cents and the numbers, and it wasn't focused on what we were doing and the kids. Having the time away from putting on shows is what made us realize a nonprofit was really what we were. When you're in the shows, we put all of our shows on in a 2-week time frame. So the kids come every day from 9 to 3 for 2 weeks. They learn everything. We costume them. We put everything. So when we're in show mode, we are just spinning like tops. Like
that's a lot of pressure. 2
yeah,
weeks.
So it is full show mode during those 2 weeks. There's not a ton of time during our busy season to work on the business and all of those other things. So I think that we would have just kept going. We would have kept operating how we operated. We would have kept trying to keep up with the demand. Whereas instead, we stepped back and said, we don't know what the demand will be or when it will be, considering it was still the beginning. How can we try to make it through this? And so I think once we started to actually go through the process of realizing things, it was the biggest blessing for us. Becoming a nonprofit, obviously we had to start a board of directors, which has given us so much guidance in what we're doing. It's allowed us to apply for grant money, get, donations and things like that. I don't think that we would be able to exist on the level that we do if we had tried to run as a business, as an LLC. And I think, again, a lot of that just came from looking at, why are we doing this? Because it wasn't to make money, I'll tell you that. We weren't, churning money out and just like living large here. We're teachers that love teaching. And to your point, we're crazy enough to teach during the school year and during the summer. But again, we looked at how we grew up and the opportunities that we had. There wasn't a ton there. With sports, you're doing sports year round. You've got travel teams, school sports, all of the things. Theater, you have a show a year at your school. It's about it. There's maybe 1 or 2 organizations that do, similar to what we do, but again, it's very limited. So it kind of gave us that time. And I think that we all would look back now and say, in a really weird way, we can now look back and say we wouldn't have even half of what we have now if it wasn't for that forced time off.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people say that, and that was true for me personally. I mean, my wife and I were both coaching down in Austin, Texas, and I remember the last game being like, what's happening? The NBA shut down, and we had one game, and it went to triple overtime or double overtime. And then we're like, all right, we're supposed to leave for spring break the next day.
Oh, wow.
I ended up getting canceled later that night. And then it was 3 months of nothing. Like we had nothing to do except be at our house. We could walk, play 9 holes at the golf course, but like literally had nothing. Like we're trying to plan our summer stuff, but it was like, what are we planning? We don't know when we can go out. So it was like, as much as, it was terrible in a lot of ways, it was a nice little reset personally, professionally, just to like sit back. As they say, it's hard to work in the business and on the business. Yes. So it was a great way to just like step away from whatever you're doing, whether it's your life or your business, and be like, all right, is this what we want to be doing? Are we in the right direction? Kind of find that why again. And clearly, in hindsight, looks like obviously some positives for you guys.
Definitely.
So you found a path, you found a vision. All of a sudden it got to a point where you're like, someone needs to be full time. And that person was you.
That person was me.
How did that, was it just like, hey, we need someone? It reminds me of, we had Scott Heron on here from NAMI Syracuse. It was like, someone has to be full time on this, constantly thinking about this and doing this. Is that kind of what it came to, or what happened in this instance?
I mean, a lot of different things led up to it. So in 2023, our third partner stepped back. And so it became just 2 of us running the organization, 2 of us kind of spearheading everything. And So obviously it was one of us that was going to be looking at this. I had always dreamed of it once we became a nonprofit, and we're really, or not even becoming a nonprofit, more once the demand was there and we were adding all of these shows. I hoped that someday, like, that would be cool, but I never knew if it was reality. Also, both of us being public school teachers, you're always told teaching is a really hard job to walk away from because you're teaching kids, you can't leave the kids, but also you have benefits that are really good, and you have a pension, and there's a lot of reasons that people would criticize you for leaving teaching. I started to get to a point personally where we were so busy with EYP during the summer, and I did start to feel like I am working with kids 24/7, and I love it, but I don't even have my own kids yet. So personally, I had to kind of look at it as, if I'm going to become a parent in the next couple years, where's the give and take? And with EYP, it's all hands on deck. It's you pour everything in because we're a small organization. So it wasn't going to be there. I wasn't willing to compromise that. So I started to think about, can my future not include teaching in a public school? That's what ultimately led me to take a break from teaching and work in staffing and recruiting. I wanted to see what else was out there, get some corporate experience, be able to say, I'm not just a teacher that is now running a nonprofit organization. I've learned, making cold calls, making relationships, and doing the things that teachers just don't have to do or don't get the experience doing. It was always in the back of my head that hopefully doing EYP full-time would be an option, but I had to, financially prepare that I was going to be working in some capacity. When it came time to make the decision, ultimately it was who can realistically make this work? My partner who I started the business with, she's been teaching for 20 plus years. I had been teaching for 4. You have a lot less to lose walking away from teaching when you've only been teaching for 4 years. So that was a huge piece of it. I didn't have a family yet. She has 2 kids. So it wasn't this, someone's stepping into this amazing role. It's fleshed out what the job description is. The salary is there. Let's do it. It was someone has to sacrifice and figure this out. Can one of us make that work? And I was lucky enough to be in a position to say, I can try this. I can, give it a couple years and, take a step back and see if this can sustain full time. We knew that in order for, me to be the executive director full time long term, our organization needs to grow. But we had to take that first step in order to see how to make that happen. So again, it was kind of a lot of different factors, but ultimately it came down to the point of which one of us can do this. And I also had a lot more of an interest in it. I really have learned to love the business side of things. I run all of our books. I do all of our marketing, I've taken on a lot of different roles, and we both have, but I definitely cared more about that stuff than she did, I think, in terms of caring to spend your time doing that. We both love putting on shows. We both love working on the organization and making it better. But in terms of someone, spending 30, 40 hours a week doing it's a lot. You've got to be, ready to kind of take that on and learn as you go and grow as you go. And it felt like where I was in my life, it made a lot more sense. And I was excited for it. I was ready for it. And it's been great. There's still a long way to go, but like I said before, we both consider ourselves so lucky to do this as a job. And, someday we hope that she can retire from teaching and be full-time too. We anticipate needing that. We anticipate, continuing to grow. We feel like we're just in the beginning. But it's definitely made a tremendous difference having someone that can really take a full-time approach to not just put on shows, but to kind of look at all of the other things that go into running an organization.
Yeah. And I think they're lucky to have you, that you had that excitement to be able to do the rest of that. Because like you said, putting on shows is, from a, customer facing standpoint, that's what you guys do. But there's so
Right.
much more to the whole operation, I'm sure, than just that. Even just running a business.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people, I want to start a restaurant. Sure. You want to be able to serve people great food, have a great time.
Right.
There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like any business. But the fact that you had a strategic move to
Yep.
go into more of a corporate world to learn some different, skills. And I'm sure you've surrounded yourself with the board of directors, with people
Yeah.
with different skill sets. Because as you know, I always say you can do things, you can do one or two things really well. I think everything else, you got to really rely on other people, and you got to make those connections, and you got to have
Definitely.
that network. So clearly you kind of did that, and you had that, also just having that drive of like, I want to do this. Like you kind of knew it in the back of your head, because it could have been both of you being like,
We're
yeah,
good."
we want to teach, and it may not be what it is today.
Yeah.
So it takes someone to kind of, make that leap. And clearly it seems like things are going well, but that was, it's an interesting story, kind
Yeah.
of how you got to that point.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, the shows and the teaching part of it is the natural part. That's the quote unquote easy part for us. That's what we started doing. That's what we've always wanted to do. That's what it's about. But we quickly learned that you can't just put on shows. There is more to it. So, we were kind of forced to face that reality. But then, like you said, I kind of took it as that strategic move, as that challenge of there can be more for me in this. I love teaching the kids, but can I help to solve the issues of we have more kids than we can take. Kids need this, especially coming out of COVID, the social emotional aspect of needing to be surrounded by other kids and have this outlet. It became that determination of like, how do we find the gap and how do we fill it? And that was what ultimately has fueled this whole thing for us. Is there's a need and we need to fill it, and we're still figuring out how to fill it, and being challenged every day. But we look at where we started and where we are now, and what our plan is for the next even 6 months, and it's all so quickly changing, which is really cool.
This episode of Upstate Impact is brought to you by Renewal by Anderson of Central New York. It's Christmas in July, and for a limited time, you can save 20% off your entire project with no payments until Christmas 2026. And because you're listening to the Upstate Impact podcast, you'll receive an additional $500 off your entire project when you mention Upstate Impact during your free consultation. If you've been thinking about replacing your windows or doors, now is the perfect time. Schedule your free window and door inspection before July 31st by calling 315-422-3500. Again, that's 315-422-3500. Mention the Upstate Impact podcast to receive your additional $500 off. Renewal by Anderson of Central New York, locally owned and operated, and proud to support the stories that make Upstate New York great. Walk me through a production. What goes into it? You talk about I'm sure it's more than 2 weeks, 2 weeks with the kids.
Yep.
But like, who decides on what the production is?
Yeah.
The costumes, the dance. When you mentioned earlier, like I came in and just taught the dance. Did you create that dance? Did someone else? And you're just
Great
teaching it? Like I
questions.
just have no
I
idea.
forget that people don't just know
No,
what
I've
goes
never
into
been
it.
part
Yeah.
of one,
Yeah.
maybe other than like second grade,
Right.
when we did it, but I
Right.
don't even remember that. So, fill me in at least, and
so
probably some listeners.
a lot goes into it. So my artistic director, Michelle Courier, who has been my partner in this from the beginning, her and I are definitely spearheading the production of the shows. We are the ones that pick the shows, which is really fun. Sometimes it's just shows that we've always wanted to do.
What's your criteria? Yeah.
It kind of depends. Sometimes we have them planned out a year in advance. Other times we're like, oh my gosh, we need to announce what the show is. Like we have to pick a show. A lot of times it is, what we are interested in, but also there's the element of what are the kids going to be interested in? What do they want to do? We also try to diversify the different experiences. So if we have 2 different summer shows for the same exact age group, one show we want to be a little bit more classical, old school. One might be a little more pop or rock. We don't want them to be all Disney musicals, and the kids are coming in and it's kind of just feeling like copy paste, everything's being repeated. So we really try to be strategic in the experiences that we're offering the kids. We have a lot of kids that do 1 show a year and come back and that's kind of it. We also have a lot of kids that do every show we offer. So if you look at those kids, you want it to be a different experience each show that they do. So we are the ones that pick the shows. We usually plan our season about a year out in advance, just due to demand, really. And then it's kind of getting our creative team together. We have a team besides the two of us. There are 4 other individuals, sometimes 5, depending on the show. So we have a costumer, we have a lighting and sound director, I have an assistant choreographer who now in this new era has become the head choreographer, which has been crazy for me. So the team gets together and we start looking at all of the behind the scenes elements. So we start talking about ideas for costumes. What do we want things to look like? How many costumes is each kid gonna have? How many roles is each kid gonna have? It's not always as simple as you're this named part and you're in the ensemble. A huge thing for us is really trying to give every kid just as meaningful as an experience regardless of their role. So you could be tree number 4 or you could be the lead of the show. You're just as important to the story of the show. And we want each kid to feel that, and we want each kid to be able to shine on stage in their own way. So a lot of that is, again, strategic in terms of, do they maybe have 2 different parts that they're balancing? They're a tree and a village person, or, do they have different costumes, or how can we help them to shine? What can we add them into so that it's not, I'm on stage for 2 minutes out of an hour-long production. At the end of the day, every kid is paying the same amount to be there. They deserve the best experience they can get. So that's where a lot of the planning on our end comes with costumes. What are the lights going to look like? Who's getting a microphone? All of those things. Myself and the other choreographer, we do come up with the dances. So that is also a huge part of it, is looking at, okay, we have all of these songs that make up the show. Who's in each song? What's it going to look like? What are they going to do? Obviously, you can't show up to a rehearsal with 60 kids and just fly by the seat of your pants teaching a song. So that takes a lot of planning on our end. Michelle does most of the directing and the vocal directing as well. Her background is music. She's a music teacher at ESM. And then Kiara and I, the other choreographer, we handle most of the dance. So yes, it's a lot of back end planning, but also at the same time, our summer programs, they're back to back, so we don't have time in between shows to plan for the next.
Oh wow, so you got 2 essentially.
Yes.
Wow.
So like this summer, for example, we have 4 main productions and 2 smaller productions that runs for 7 weeks consecutively in the summer. So we're looking April, May, June. We're gearing up for the show that's first in July and last in August. We have to have all of those components planned out before even stepping into the theater. So then it kind of brings you to, the kids are showing up day 1. They show up at 9 a.m. and there are about 60 of them. Some have done it before. Most of them have never stepped foot in our theater or worked with our organization before. So our first day is not as typical as the rest of the week or the 2 weeks. The first day is really focused on kind of getting to know each other, building that community, making new friends, feeling safe, but also looking at auditions. So we try to teach the kids audition techniques. They learn a song, they learn a dance, and we hold auditions. So none of our roles are pre-cast. Everything is based off of what they show us on that day. And we really try to make them comfortable enough to not feel that the stakes are high, but also to understand that it's important to do your best and to show us what you can do, because it's not fair for us to say, she's done a show before, we know she can sing better than that. Everyone needs a fair shot. And that is really important to us. Like, very, very important is that you step foot on that stage day 1. We don't know you. We're just basing it off of what you've done. And especially, as we work with older students, some of them want to do this beyond high school. It's important that they learn those techniques now. So day 1 is all community building, making friends, building relationships, and auditions. They come in on the second day, we announce their parts, and we hit the ground running right from there. The rest of the first week and into the second week is learning the choreography, so learning the dances, learning the vocal parts for the songs, learning the blocking of where to stand on stage. While that's all happening, our costumer is working insanely hard as one human to costume 60 children. A lot of, ordering costumes. She makes a lot of our costumes. It really is. Even, I've been doing this for so many years. Every show, I'm like, how did you pull this off? How did you give every child something to wear? And then the last couple days leading up to the show is, dress rehearsals. So working out the kinks, the kids get microphones, we're running with costumes, practicing costume changes, all of those types of things. And as much as it's a lot, it's also about giving them an experience more than just putting on a show. So that's something that we always try to remember throughout the 2 weeks is it's important they know what their dance is and what their song is and what they wear and where to be. But we also want them to have fun. And for some kids, theater is their life, and that's why they're here. And for other kids, it's my mom signed me up to be here, and I'm just staying busy in the summer. We have to make sure that regardless of what end of the spectrum you fall on within that, you're coming out of this having a positive experience and learning something. As former teachers, as a teacher, as educators, we want kids to walk away gaining something from this, learning something. We really, we really take pride in focusing on character and who these kids are. And again, it's not just can you know where to stand and do your thing, but can you problem solve while doing it? Can you advocate for yourself if you need help knowing which side of the stage to leave on or to come on? There's so many little things that we've realized we can tell them what to do or we can help them figure out what to do. And we always say to them, the first week of camp is us teaching you what to do. The second week is you making it come to life and you putting the show on. And I know I'm biased in saying this, but if anyone comes to one of our shows, it's always, how did you do this in 2 weeks? And yes, we work very hard, but it's the kids. Those kids come in by day 2 or 3, they've made their friends. They know what to do. They want to be there. They look forward to this every year. And it really shows on our stage. These kids take things to the next level. And I think that's, you can see in our performances that these kids are having fun and they love doing it. And that's always our focus. We are type A teachers. We want to have a good product, but at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. And it's about the kids and it's about their experience and what they can take away with it. And just seeing the growth that these kids have in 2 week span is honestly amazing.
Yeah, it's funny hearing you say this. It's just so similar. Like I said, I have no idea about theater.
Yeah.
But athletics, right? And I ran a youth program. I ran a club team. I ran, tryouts, all these things that are so similar that it's like I would always get as many coaches as we could from different programs to come to every tryout because most of them wouldn't know any of the kids.
Right.
And it's like, if you know the kids, you have the bias. Oh, I know she can say, and I know he can say, or I know he could play. He just didn't play well.
Right.
But they're kids. They're growing. Some kids are working hard, right?
Yes.
You still want to reward the kids who are working hard to give them that opportunity. And the ones who aren't, they got to learn. It's better to learn at 5th grade than is, when they're in college. That, hey, if you don't pick up your stick all year, you might not make the team.
Yep.
Right. So it's like so similar in so many ways. And then you're talking about the production. Like, obviously, you want to win games, you want to get better at lacrosse, but still got to be fun. You're still a kid, right? They got to make friends. They got to socially develop. There's
Learn
so much.
Yes,
there's so much more.
Away. Yeah.
Yes, and you want to be that role model for them as a coach or as a director, like
Definitely.
you. It's just, it's literally the same thing, just a different production, more or less.
Right. And working with kids in general, I think people, sports, theater, academics, I think, people look at that and you very quickly realize there's a lot of impact I can have here. And there's a lot of influence that I have on these kids or what we're doing has on these kids. And it can't just be as simple as I want to win games or I want a show to be good. I want people to be happy with the product. It's so much more than that because these kids, especially coming out of COVID, they need this stuff. This is, we have kids who they've been doing our program for the almost 10 years that we've been up and running. they look forward to seeing these friends every summer. It's their summer camp. It just happens to be in a theater.
Well, what are the ages typically?
So we actually we have kids from beginning at 4 and all the way up to 18. So when we started, our range was more like 2nd grade to 8th grade. That was kind of our sweet spot. And then within the past couple years, we've really seen that there's more demand in the middle, but also on those ends. For our kids that would get to 8th, 9th grade, they would be devastated that they were aging out. And we're like, well, why do they who says they have to age out? We make that call. So we created a teen show. So now, those 8th graders up until 12th graders till 18, they have a show that they can do. And then on the other end of it, we started to realize, as our middle group grows up and gets into that older group, we need the younger kids. We need, to keep the program going and to keep things moving. And, a big part of what we do, obviously we're not childcare, but yeah, parents look for things for their kids to do during the summer on school breaks, things like that. The littles, their parents want something for them to do. They want something for them to
and to try something new.
Yes.
And maybe they'll love it. You want to get experience.
At high school, you have to kind of already have it figured out. Our high schoolers that do theater, they love theater. Theater is it. Yes. Yeah. The littles are just there to have a good time, And so that's where we started to realize we should be focusing on all ages, really. So we've started what's called an overture program. The overture is what comes before the main production. So the overture is our program for 4 to 7-year-olds. It's not as big. It's not 60 students. We cap at 20 kids. It's a little bit more like a school day versus learning a full show. So they put on mini productions, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, The Little Red Hen, things like that. So they're still working towards a project and they're learning theater elements, but they also have more time for arts and crafts. They have free play time. They have morning meeting circle. So it's a little bit more structured like a school day so that it kind of can, some of these kids have never been to kindergarten before, and you're expecting them to be there from 9 to 3 for 2 weeks straight. It's a long time. So you have to cater to that, but you also have to cater to the kids that, know that they want to be in our older productions eventually. So you have to kind of give them the theater elements and allow them to learn that, but also help them to become humans. And, it's like teaching kindergarten. You're less focused on what are they learning, and you're more about how can I help them to know how to learn and how to exist in this space. So, over the past 3 or 4 years, that's when we started adding those 2 programs, the teen program and the overture program. So now we are 4 to 18. The majority of our programs are more in that like 1st grade to 9th grade range, just because that's a big bulk of what our students are. But we do 1 teen show a year, and then we have 3 overture programs a year. And then the rest are just shows for the middle age group.
Yeah, that's funny because talk about being a teacher. You're usually a teacher of one grade. You're used to dealing with one age group and the issues and the development and everything, where you have quite a range. So you're dealing with.
And it's been a learning curve for us, even there's in one day at different times, we're seeing all of those kids from 4 to 18. So the younger kids are there from 9 to 3. The older kids are there from 4 to 7:30. So it's how do I shift gears of I'm teaching 4 and 5-year-olds, then I'm teaching 3rd graders, and now I'm working with 17 and 18-year-olds. As a teacher, you almost have to like change your hats of how am I speaking to them? What am I what am I saying and what am I teaching them? It really forces you to kind of look at exactly who you're teaching, and it helps to make it about the kid, because you're looking at it as this isn't a one size fits all. I can't show up, and none of our team can just show up and wing it. It's everything has to be so thought out and so pre-planned. And that's what, I think makes our program so intentional and so successful, is that we are putting in that work prior to showing up and working with the kids.
That's a long day working with kids too.
It is.
9 to 7.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So our summer is, like I said, that is our, because that's when the kids are out of school.
Yeah,
that's when we
it's
can
your busy
maximize
time.
the busy
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So during the summer, there's days we show up at 8 o'clock and we leave at 8 o'clock. But during the school year, it is harder to fit programs in. We maximize on April break, February break, but that's 1 week that you get, and you can only get so many kids in within that 1 week. So a big problem that we're trying to solve for now, which has kind of led us into our next chapter, is our demand is higher than we can handle right now. So our summer programs are all waitlisted. One of our summer programs that we have 60 kids, our waiting list is 45 kids. Yeah, and it's
another production.
Exactly. So right now we're figuring out, how do we do more shows within the calendar year? Adding in a fall show where you're rehearsing just once a week and it's kind of a more spread out process, a spring show, things like that. But also looking at it as, okay, all of the shows that currently exist, how can we double the amount of kids? How can we triple the amount of kids? Because the kids are there. The kids want it. The parents want it. But again, at the forefront of our minds is, how do we do that while also maintaining the integrity that we have for our program? And that's been a big reason why we've grown slow, is we've wanted to make sure that our team is very strategically crafted and that everybody knows our intentions and has the same intentions, and that we're not sacrificing the experience for the kids to get kids in the door. I think, I look back and I'm like, if we were a business, you could see the drive to do that. I've got to make the money. I've got to keep the doors open. I've got to do it. And that's a factor for us. Of course, we have to pay our bills, but we're allowed to look at things less money driven. And we're allowed to say, how can we get the kids in the door? It's about getting them in the door for the experience. It's not about getting them in the door to make money. So it's finding that balance of course, money matters, but at the forefront of our organization, it's devastating to turn away hundreds of kids every summer. Like, what are they doing if they're not doing our program? There's only one or two other options for children's theater in the area. That's heartbreaking as an educator and as someone who is, doing what I'm doing. But again, I can't sacrifice the experience that I'm giving those kids just to get them in the door. And that takes a lot of balance, and that takes a lot of planning for the future. And we think we're on the brink of having that somewhat solved. But obviously that it's growing pains. It's normal. It's a good and bad problem to have.
And it's normal for a lot of businesses, even for profit,
Yes.
not nonprofits, but every business. You don't want to dilute your product. You don't want to, what's making you grow. You don't want to get rid of that. And all of a sudden, now you're going back down, but you hired a bunch of people, and, you want to make sure you scale appropriately. But
especially when you've started it from scratch, you've seen what it takes to get it up and running. You can't risk that going away and losing that.
Exactly. Talk about partnerships with, corporate sponsors. I'm sure it looks like on your website, you guys do a lot of different corporate sponsorships, get people involved. I mean, you have productions, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people who are interested in sponsoring and
Definitely.
can probably help, especially given to a nonprofit like you guys.
So in the past, our corporate sponsorship program has been pretty straightforward. It's been on a yearly basis. And it's essentially, as a company or as a business or even an individual, what are your giving levels? What are you getting for those giving levels? So we have a printed playbill for every show that we do. So that's a huge way that we can advertise for organizations. We also have screens with slideshows going during our shows. We have a social media following. We have our website. So it's kind of, we had created a tiered system of sponsorship level. So, if you're a gold sponsor, you're going to get a full page ad in that playbill, and you're going to get visibility on the slideshow and our website and all of those things. If you're a silver sponsor, your playbill ad may only be a half a page, different things like that to kind of allow to incentivize companies to want to get more advertising and get their name out there more, but also to allow the smaller businesses that want to support and want to advertise but don't have the marketing budget for that. So we've tried to kind of create a template that is kind of adaptable to different people, so to speak. And again, it's for a year. So you're paying one amount and you're getting advertising throughout all of our shows. Every show that we do, we sell between 500 and 700 tickets to. So, if our summer season alone is 4 shows, it's a lot of people you're getting your ads in front of. So it's definitely been great for the businesses that choose to participate. In the past, honestly, it's been an issue of, prior to me being full-time, who had time to go get corporate sponsors to even let these businesses know that this is an option? And that kind of leads us into where we are today. Our sponsorship program has kind of taken a shift because we've taken a shift. So we are, for the first time, signing a lease for our own brick and mortar space. Up until now, we have been renting from various theaters. So we were at the Landmark. We rented from the Palace for years. The past 2 years, we've been at American High in the Village of Liverpool. They're a filming studio, but it used to be a high school, so they have a full auditorium. And we rent on a per show basis. So in order to add more shows, we're paying more rent. In order to have things beyond shows, acting classes, dance classes, costume workshops, it comes at a price. That's a huge pain point for us in trying to grow our program. But also, more than that, the availability. Every theater, every high school, they have their own stuff going on. So for us, we haven't obviously had full access to a calendar. So it is, what can we fit in within their parameters? And we've realized we need to have no parameters for a schedule. We need to be able to say, we have the staffing capacity to put on a show at this time. Let's do it. We have 60 kids or 40 kids on a wait list ready to go. Let's do it. So we started to see that there was a need for it. So for the coming years, we are partnering with Revolve Dance Alliance. They are a local dance studio here in Syracuse that also was looking for a space. And we are combining forces. So we will stay separate entities. They're a for-profit business. We are obviously a nonprofit organization, but we're going to exist under one roof. So our sponsorships have kind of shifted because, I can't offer the same exact incentives or perks for each level because, for example, the theater I'm in right now has 2 projector screens. I don't know that my new space will have projector screens. I can't, have someone pay for that and not be able to deliver.
You'll actually be able to put on productions as well. Oh, okay. So it's not just somewhere to get everyone. You actually probably want to be in the place the production's going on, so you get comfortable with the space.
So
too.
the idea is that this is a all-purpose building for both of us.
Nice.
So similar to us, Revolve Dance Alliance, they have a space for rehearsals, but for all of their shows, they rent space. So that's a budgeting thing. They're restricted to schedules and timelines and things like that. We both need that ability to, obviously working around each other, but to be able to rehearse on the stage we're performing on and do all of those things under one roof. So the space that we are going to be in is currently a blank slate. It is essentially a open warehouse with a couple bathrooms. So
Perfect.
we are going to be doing some major renovations in the next 2 or 3 months. We're going to be building out some rehearsal dance rooms, a costume storage unit, a stage, auditorium, the whole 9 yards. It's over 10,000 square feet, and it will be basically everything we need. Obviously, with that comes a big undertaking of we are, increasing what we're taking on, but also it's a huge capital campaign here. We are, paying for all of these renovations that need to happen with the hope and the mindset of, it makes sense once we're in the space. The dollars and cents work. The ability for our businesses to grow is insane once we're in this building. It's getting from point A to point B. It's that capital part of it that is what takes, is kind of the I guess, the question mark, so to speak. It's happening. We're making it work, but we're learning how to make it work as we go. So we've launched a major fundraising campaign for this project itself. And a huge piece of that, we've had a ton of families donate, people that love our programs, that love us as, individuals that are involved in these programs and want to support it. But, as you can imagine, it's going to take a lot more than that. We are able to apply for grants, which is great, but that also is, very specific, and you only have certain buckets you can even tap into. So we have kind of taken this approach of corporate sponsorships are going to be big for us. It's less about get an advertisement in one show, in one playbill, and it's more of we're building a performing arts center that we hope and have the intention for it to be a huge hub for the arts in Syracuse. We have these big theaters, we have different places like that. We don't have many places like what we're trying to create. We want to maximize on that. We want to, yes, it's the home of EYP and Revolve, but, we can open this to the community. Other dance studios can have performances here. Other theater companies could perform here. Businesses could have luncheons or, different things like that. How can we get the community involved, not only once it's open, but as we're trying to get it open? So we have, different naming rights available within the building. We have sponsorship opportunities throughout, the next couple years in each of our shows and performances and things like that. So, in terms of corporate opportunities, it used to be get your name in front of the people that are coming to the shows. We've now opened this door of we're trying to make this project known. We're trying to get this project to have awareness. And if your company or you as an individual are involved in that, people are going to know. We want this to be more than just about EYP and Revolve. We want this to be about the community and about the arts and the importance that that has. And I think that for a lot of businesses and a lot of people, that does take it to the next level of it could be worth it for me. They want to support theater. That's all great. They have good intentions, but they also have to spend their money to get something out of it. And we understand that. So we're looking at it now less of having some ads and playbills and different things like that. And we're looking at it as how can we partner with these businesses on many levels, whether it's a couple $100, couple $1,000, tens of thousands of dollars. We're flexible. We are open-minded. We have a project. We have a goal. And if anyone is interested in helping us reach that goal, we're here to work with them. And that's really what our next phase is about, is putting on the shows that we have scheduled, but also making this new space happen so that in the next 5 to 10 years, the dance studio and the nonprofit theater organization can double the amount of kids that we're servicing. And that's really what this space will allow us to do. Once we get the construction behind us, once we get in the doors, can open it to the public. And we really think that it's going to be great. We have a lot of people that are interested in the space and in using the space and love what we're doing. But, it's going to take some help. It's going to take people realizing that this is a need and this is important and that kids need this. And that's really what is at the forefront of the project as well.
Super excited.
It is.
And we're happy to put out the link to hopefully get people, to help donate, but also anyone listening who is or has a connection to a corporate sponsor who may be interested, how would they get in touch? What does that process look like?
Yeah.
Just reach out online or social media?
So we have, our website, eypsyracuse.com is, our organization website. It's very directed, or it's very direct in terms of what we do, who we are, how to get in contact with us. Revolve has the same thing. That's great as two separate entities. We have created a website kind of to combine us right now for this project. Of course, if it's easy to just reach out to us directly, it's all going to go to the same place. But we do have a website, the EncoreRevolveFund.com. So it's EncoreRevolveFund.com. And it's really a platform for people to understand and see who are these two people. Who is Revolve Dance Alliance? Who is Encore Youth Productions? Why do they work well together? Why are they trying to build a building? And why does it matter? What can it do for the community? What can it do for the public? What is the intention of it? So we really worked hard prior to even signing the lease for this building and looking at how can we show people that it's about more than us? How can we show people why we're doing what we're doing? And we felt that the best way to do that was to create a online platform where people could read testimonies from both, parents from both of our organizations. They could look at who we are individually and who we're trying to be together. And there's also, information about some of the corporate sponsorships. There's information about donating. You can donate directly there. It kind of is like it's kind of services everything there. But at the end of the day, all of it is coming through me. I am in partnership with my team and with Revolve Dance Alliance. We're all working endlessly and effortlessly on this, but I am kind of spearheading a lot of it. So at this point, I am excited and happy to have conversations with anyone that wants to have one. Whether you have your checkbook open or not, the conversations are what matter, and the awareness is what matters. And I think that if people can take the time to learn what we're doing, whether it's on the website or by a conversation with one of us, I think that it's, super beneficial, because you never know who they know. You never know who they're talking to. You never know what their passions are or who they want to help. The theater world is very niche, but it's also very big. There's a lot of people that love theater for many different reasons. And, even beyond theater, focusing on the youth. It doesn't have to be someone that cares about theater or a business that's related to theater. At the end of the day, these are families in Central New York that are coming to our programs. That's your market for many, many businesses and organizations. So for us, it's let's just have the conversation. Let's just talk and see, can you help me and can I help you? And at the end of the day, if, like I said, no matter what level, if someone's willing to help us out and be a partner in this, we're going to do everything we can to make it worth their time and to show that we're appreciative, because we can't do this alone. This project is, like I said, it's happening. We're doing it. It's moving forward, but we need help, between grant money and donations and sponsorships. It's going to take a little bit of everything to be able to successfully make it happen. And that's obviously a risk we're taking, but also something that we truly believe at our core will come through for us.
It's very cool.
Thank
Amy,
you.
Yeah, best of luck. I appreciate you coming on, kind of sharing everything you have going on at Encore Youth Productions. And it's super exciting that you have this project going. I know it's probably a little nerve-wracking. It's a big undertaking, any sort of renovation like that, especially a space that large.
Yes.
But clearly, look where you started, right? One summer play to the point where, there's a demand.
Yes.
Right? It's just finding the right people. And I think Central New York is good about, bringing each other up and, happy to help in any way we can.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome to be here and be able to talk about what we're doing. And like I said, it's just getting the word out there and letting people understand what we're doing. And it's fun to be able to share that with you and with your audience. And thanks for having me.
Sweet. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Of course.